everyone, and welcome back to Experience Italy with Friends. Today we're taking you to one of our favorite corners of Italy, the Amalfi Coast, along with the neighboring treasures of Naples, Sorrento, Capri, and beyond. We've been visiting this stretch of Campania since 2009, and every visit deepens our love for its sun-drenched cliffs, pastel towns, and islands that have captivated emperors and movie stars alike. I just returned from yet another magical visit, and I'm re-energized to share my passion, insights, and tips for creating your own unforgettable journey. Let's get started. Andiamo! Experience Italy with Friends is a travel and lifestyle podcast where we will explore our favorite destinations and hidden gems, share key travel tips and cultural insights, and provide real-time updates about our move to this remarkable country. Join me, Tanya Razzo, an Italian travel expert and founder of Amici Vacations, and my Italian husband and producer, Davide Razzo, on a journey that is sure to inspire you and prepare you to create immersive and authentic experiences of your own in the beautiful country of Italy. Welcome back, Amici. We're so glad you're here with us today.
Hey, ciao everyone. And first off, we need to apologize. I know we've been really bad about getting you these podcasts on time, but there is an explanation for it. Tanya has been traveling a lot and we had visitors, and then there was the Bravio. So, we're sorry that you are only getting this one again late, but we want to make sure that from now on, we will get you these podcasts on time. Right, Tanya?
Yes, it's really been a busy couple of weeks, and, I'm excited to get back into a routine and a more stable life. So we'll be here every 2 weeks with a new episode on time, but we've been busy these last couple of weeks, and I'm excited to share what we've been up to.
Yeah, let's give them an update on our life here in Montepulciano.
Well, when we last spoke with you all, we were heading into the Bravio weekend. And again, just to recap, Montepulciano every year has this festival that revolves around its wine culture. And the celebration is the different neighborhoods called the contrade, and they compete with each other to roll up a wine barrel through the streets of Montepulciano. And the winner gets, I think, great prize money, but mostly bragging rights. But the whole week leading up to this event was amazing, but it really culminates in the weekend. And that's where we left off in our last episode. And
right.
I don't know. I loved that weekend. And it was even more special to have friends here because to see it through their eyes and hear that they just felt like they were part of something magical and, something that the locals do and not every tourist gets to take a part in. And it was awesome. I felt like I was in the medieval ages. The contrade were dressed up in their medieval outfits. There were the parades. I think I loved where they did the picking of the order of the race, which neighborhood gets to go first.
That was a process. That it took 2.5 hours?
It did. And so we're all standing in Piazza Grande right at the top of Montepulciano in front of the Palazzo Comunale. And you watch each of the contrada go into the Comunale. And so this is this party of actors, dressed up, and they're the king and the queen, and there's a princess and a prince and flag throwers and trumpet players. Anyway, they all kind of go in. And once they're all inside, they have this drawing, which I was told is actually a little girl who picks a wine barrel, a little mini wine barrel that has a number inside out of a bowl. And they figure out, who's going to be first in the lineup. And once they have the number picked, they open up one of the windows and a trumpeter goes to the window.
There were 4 trumpeters, but
but they then announce and they hold out the flag of the contrada that was chosen, and then they line them up in the windows. And so, I don't know, the excitement of all of that. And, sadly, our contrada was last. And so it had the least advantageous starting place, in the lineup. And I don't know, remember we were talking about too with Siena and the Palio, that there's a lot of strategy and some bribery and different plays going on during their,
Yeah.
competition between the contrade. And I had to ask a local here and say, so is this all on the up and up? Like, is there strategy, bribery, trading favors? And she said, absolutely not. We were just unlucky to be picked last in this. And, it was kind of interesting to have that conversation, though, because she said that the contrade, while there's a competition here, it really is more of a friendly competition.
It's a celebration.
In Montepulciano, it's a celebration. They all have each other's back. And she said the biggest thing they hope for is good weather, not the biggest thing is to win, but they really are supportive. And I could see that during the weekend and how they orchestrated the parades and such. I don't know, what was some of your takeaways?
Well, I worked a lot during that week at our Contrada's restaurant, and I was cleaning tables, getting them ready for the next guests. But it was fun. I think the one thing about the Bravio, the pushers. So I think you saying nothing is getting bribed and stuff like that. I think that the pushers, if you have good pushers...
I mean, the ones actually rolling the barrel.
Yeah, rolling the pushers, yeah. And so the winners of the Bravio this year was the Contrada
Cagnano.
of Cagnano, right? And those pushers were the actual pushers of our Contrada. So our Contrada was very upset that those guys won. Anyone could have won, but they did not want them to win.
They were viewed as traitors.
Yes, they were kind of viewed as
little traitors.
But
we had so much fun with our Contrada Colazzi, and all of my friends, bought the bandanas that you tie around your neck, and they felt really happy to be members, honorary members for the weekend, and we cheered on our Contrada and the parade. And we had rented an apartment in the historic center for my friends to be there, so that it was easy access to all of these events. And we were able to hang out our windows and watch the parade. And I just remember that and being able to shout out at our Contrada as they walked by. And then we actually watched the race. And that was, for me, so thrilling. It's like we weren't sure where to be to watch it. And the best place was to be actually at the Contrada, the tent, where they serve like the restaurant and such, but they have monitors. And so we could watch it from the TV when it started at the bottom of the town. And then pretty soon, it seemed like minutes, they were rolling by us, and struggling to push that wine barrel. And it just looked exhausting, but it was fun to kind of be there with the locals. And the whole thing was over in less than 9 minutes.
Yeah. So I was just about to say, it was the winner was under 9 minutes. When we walk that up, what do you think? It takes us 15 to almost 20 minutes?
I would say yes, 20, 25. I mean, we go from the bottom of town. It takes us 30 minutes or so, from our place here. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to time ourselves, but, we're not that fast.
They were fast. But the race itself, I think our Contrada did okay. I think we were third place. Yeah, we ended up third.
There's no shame in that.
So, but everybody was like, "Oh, we're not good," and blah blah. But no, they were great. And so after the race, I was working at our restaurant again. They came, and so there was a huge celebration. I think it was a fantastic experience, and we were lucky enough to be made part of this, made part of them. And so a big shout out to Federico Fastelli from Le Berne to having us involved in it. And it was a great way to meet people.
Well, it lived up to my hopes and expectations. I've been looking forward to it all year, and now it's behind us, but we've made some new friends, and now I look forward to next year's. And, as I mentioned, my friends were here. So these are a group of girls that I have been getting together with twice a year for the past 20 years. And we've gone through all of our life phases together, raising children. And we would use these weekends to either scrapbook, do projects, go on hiking trips in the US. And when they learned I was moving to Italy, they were like, well, girls trip 2025, Italy. So we've been planning this for quite some time. And I said, when I learned they wanted to come over Labor Day weekend in the US. Good time to go on vacation. But I'm like, but the Breville's going on, so we have to absolutely start our trip here. And, that's where they were hosting them. But, starting on that Monday, right after the Breville, we were on a car going to the Italian Riviera. We then went to Florence and Sorrento and the Amalfi Coast. And it ended up being timely then to tell a little bit about this favorite part of Italy of ours. And, overall, I love sharing this country that I love with friends. So Davide, though, we went to the Amalfi Coast, and it was a great refresher, re-energized me about this part of Italy. And do you remember when we first went to the Amalfi Coast?
Yes, it took me I don't know how many years to get there. We always drove by with my parents, but it was 2009.
It was. And, we had spent a month in Italy that summer with our children. I mean, they were 5 and 7 at the time. And I was happy to be in Calabria, but I said, I wanted to explore some new places in Italy. And as I was doing my research, I noticed, Amalfi wasn't too far north of Calabria. And I convinced you that we would drive up and spend a week there. And God, it was love at first sight. I mean, I think I made you pull over a million times to let me take pictures as we drove along the coast to our hotel. And I think we stopped for lunch. But I was just like, wow, and wow.
I know you made me stop several times during that stretch. But I mean, it was the first time I drove that part, and not that I had any problems driving that stretch of the coast, but it's not that easy to drive that stretch. So
that was our first visit to the Amalfi Coast. Then we didn't go again until 2021, until we brought some of our friends with us as we were headed from Tuscany to Calabria. We did what your parents didn't do, and we stopped over in the Amalfi Coast for just a couple of nights. And then our big stay and experience with the Amalfi Coast and surrounding area was back in the fall of 2022, and we decided to spend a month in Sorrento so that we could really understand all that the area had to offer. And this was right at the beginnings of Amici Vacations. And we wanted to do some research. And you were kind of concerned about spending an entire month there. But, how did that play out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was a whole month at in Sorrento. It's kind of took a long time. But I think that at the end, after the experience, that I don't think we spent enough time here to explore everything. So
yeah, I mean, it's a large area, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But, now going back just this week, it's hard to believe. I mean, we're sitting here in Montepulciano, and 3 days ago, I was sitting on the Amalfi Coast. I mean, how cool is that we can move around so easily? But, it just reminded me of why I love it so much. It's truly one of my happy places. Sea, sun, cliffside villages, and more amazing food. I mean, I ate so much seafood and mozzarella these last few days.
Hey, I completely agree, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So let's back up a little bit and talk about where it's located, right? So, Tanya, can you explain our audience where the Amalfi Coast is?
Sure, of course. And you know me, I always love to paint that picture, and I like to start a little higher level. So let's start at the region level and then zero in on our area of focus. And, I feel like I want to educate people not just about the specific place that's popular, but the bigger region. And the Amalfi Coast is in the region of Campania, which is in southwestern Italy. It stretches from the Tyrrhenian Sea to the Apennine Mountains. And if you picture Italy as a boot, it's my favorite analogy. I mean, it looks like a boot.
Yeah.
Campania sits right at the front of the ankle. So right where you would put a bracelet around your leg. And
yeah, sort of, yeah.
That
makes sense.
That's Campania. And it's just south of Lazio, the region of Rome, so not too far from Rome. And it's also bordered by the regions of Molise, Puglia, and Basilicata. And, the region of Campania has a lot to offer itself. It has rugged mountains, rolling hills, national parks, a lot of ancient Greek and Roman ruins, plus lots of beaches and coastal towns. But having said all that, the region is most famous for its dramatic western coastline. Mm-hmm. And, specifically just to kind of, again, visualize this, we're talking about the stretch of coast starting at Naples, continuing around the Bay of Naples, then heading along the north side of the Sorrentine Peninsula, down the Amalfi Coast on the south side, and ending at Vietri, sul Mare, and Salerno.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
And, just to put this into context, this section makes up roughly 35 to 40% of Campania's total coastline. And that's exactly the stretch we'll be exploring today. You still with me, Davide?
So let me repeat this. We're at the ankle of the boot and part of the western coastline, right?
Right.
So is that all known as the Amalfi Coast? If not, can you explain?
Of course. It's a great question, Davide. And, it's a huge point of confusion for many. And the simple answer is no. But there really isn't just one term to refer to this popular area. So it's most commonly referred to as the Amalfi Coast. But to be accurate, you have to break the area down into further sections. And that's the first thing I do with my clients who say, I want to go to the Amalfi Coast. I'm like, hang on. There's more to this area than one appreciates. And so let me break it down for you.
Okay, go ahead.
So first, at the northern beginning of the coastline, as I said, is Naples and the Bay of Naples. The city of Naples is the capital of the region of Campania. And, it's quite a large city. It has 1 million people in the center and about 3 million in the entire metro. So it's almost as big as Rome, but it's by water. So I think that's an additional point that it has going for it.
Okay.
And, I love Naples for its layers of history, from the ancient Greek and Roman ruins to modern street life. And
we just were in Naples and went underground. We did that underground tour for the first time.
Right. We finally made room for it.
And we saw some Greek and Roman ruins, and they just built on top of that.
Yes. And we were told, too, it's been hard to, develop the city of Naples because every time they dig, they find an archaeology site.
Like in Rome. So
it slows things down. But, I like the city of Naples, but that's kind of where we anchor and start this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so continuing to the east, there is Mount Vesuvius. This is the still active volcano overlooking the bay. And, it dominates the skyline for, much of the area. I mean, it's kind of a way to orientate yourself. Where's Vesuvius?
Yeah.
And then continuing, at the foot of Vesuvius, as you're kind of going southeast, is the Roman ruins of Pompeii and Herculaneum. Did I say that right?
Herculaneum, yeah.
Okay. Well, these are the more popular ruins. I think people hear Pompeii more than Herculaneum. And I myself haven't been to Herculaneum yet, but I think there's a competition or different, opinions about which is better, but they're both fascinating and both were buried by the eruption of Vesuvius.
Yeah, we together, we went to Pompeii in 2009 with the kids on a really hot day. And you made it this time with your friends?
Yeah, so we were there last Sunday.
Okay.
And, it's great, but I'm not as into archaeology myself. And, we went to a winery first next to it. And I have to say, maybe that was my part.
We just received a box of wine, apparently. And so I asked him, what is this? What did you order again on Amazon? No, that's the wine.
Yes.
Okay.
So
cool.
we had a great time. But so we continued. And then from Pompeii, as you head into the Sorrentine Peninsula, you're still at the Bay of Naples. And, this peninsula is a rugged mountainous strip of land that juts out from the mainland. It's really a western extension of the Laetari Mountains.
Okay, so the Laetari Mountains translates into the Milk Mountains because it's known for their cheeses from sheep and goats.
Well, hey, thanks for that fun fact, Davide.
No problem.
But let's continue on our journey along the coastline. On the north side of this peninsula that's jutting out from the mainland is the city of Sorrento. It's the largest city on the peninsula with a population of about 16 to 17,000 people. And it sits high on a cliff with, great breathtaking views of the Bay of Naples and the neighboring islands of Capri, Ischia, and Procida. And, that's what my friends noticed first. They're just like, oh my gosh, look at that cliff. Like it's on top of this massive cliff.
Uh-huh.
And then you look out over the bay and you're like, there's Vesuvius. And they're just like, wow. And, I love that about Sorrento is you have that wow factor. And, it also has a very fun, active historical center. It's full of shops and restaurants and marinas and lidos and beaches and swimming piers. And, we had a lot of fun the month that we were there.
Yeah. And, the view from Sorrento towards Naples, to me, is the better view than the view from Naples to Sorrento.
Oh, for sure.
It's especially at night. I think it was cool. So
well, hit on this a little bit later too, but I mean, you get the best sunsets from Sorrento. I mean, just the way its position, and it's different obviously through different times of the year, but we've seen some pretty magnificent sunsets from Sorrento. And last week I was, blessed with yet another one, and we got some great pictures, and it's just jaw-dropping.
Yeah. No, but, Sorrento was a nice home base for us 3 years ago. And so we, and we're going to explain why, right, Tanya?
Yeah, so we will. But I still am painting the picture of where we're at. So let me continue. As we're looking offshore, as we were talking about, you see the islands of Capri, Ischia, and Procida. And they're often considered part of this coastal area when people mention the Amalfi Coast and the surrounding area. And, Capri is known for its blue grotto and posh, luxury scene. And Ischia, we've talked about in our episode, is known for its hot springs. And Procida is a small, colorful, authentic fishing village. So you get, all this magnificent coastline, but also islands not too far offshore.
Okay, so you still haven't told me or told us where does the Amalfi Coast start?
Okay, we're getting there. So
Come on.
So we have to loop around the Sorrentine Peninsula to the south side. And the official Amalfi Coast, or
La Costiera Amalfitana.
Bravo, is a UNESCO site that is 50 kilometers long, or about 30 miles. So it's a very specific stretch of the coast that is the Amalfi Coast. So it begins with Positano in the west and then continues all the way east to Vietri sul Mare. Of the coastline, it's the 30 miles, but I would have to say I think Positano is probably the most known and most famous because of its iconic cliffside pastel houses. I mean, it's a vertical city, and so it's very unique, I think, from all others along the coast, and so many winding steps, and it has a good-sized beach at its base.
Yeah, I mean, if you've seen pictures of the Amalfi Coast, it's probably Positano. So it's a classic Amalfi Coast.
It is. It's quintessential. Yeah. So, but then, from Positano, as you continue east, the next most known town is, I would say, Amalfi. And this is the namesake town, right? And people get confused when I say, well, there's Amalfi Coast, and then there's actually the town of Amalfi. Yeah. And, it was once a powerful maritime republic. And I learned, it rivaled Venice and Genoa in the Middle Ages. So it was the dominant of the South. Amalfi had a lot of power. And then just up from Amalfi on the cliff is Ravello. And it's 350 meters up. And it's known for its villas, breathtaking gardens, and a famous music festival. And, we didn't actually go to Ravello until our stay in 2022. Because the previous times, I said, we have to go up the mountain. And you were so stressed on the Amalfi Coast highway. And you're like, we're not going up the mountain. We don't have time.
But also, you were toying with, when we were toying with the idea of moving to Italy, you said, Ravello here, Ravello there. Look at this. Look. And you were showing me pictures. And I go like, it looks really nice, but no, I cannot live there. So.
Well, we checked it out. And I have to say you were won over, though, and said, oh my gosh, we should have stopped here the other years. I'm glad we finally are. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's beautiful. And Overall, between Positano, Amalfi, and Ravello, these are the three most popular, I would say, known towns of the Amalfi Coast. But did you know there's actually 13 seaside towns in total?
Yeah, there's some really small ones. So
Well, there's Praiano, Minori, Maiori, Atrani, Fuore, Conca de Marini, and of course, Vietri Mare at the end. And Davide, can you guess which are the three largest towns of the coast?
Okay, wow. Okay, so maybe Amalfi's one, for sure. Positano is the other one. I know we drove by Vietri sul Mare, and I think that one.
You got two.
Which were?
Okay, so the largest of all the towns is Vietri sul Mare.
Okay.
At about 8,300 people. Next is actually Maiori.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With about 5,600. Then Amalfi at about 5,300. And then Positano at 3,600.
I was close. Come on.
So, but of course, they seem a lot bigger when they probably triple in size during tourist season.
So which one are the smallest?
Well, let me ask you, what do you think is the smallest?
Okay, so let me see. The smallest Atrani is one for sure. Furore, and then maybe the Conca dei Marini.
The smallest is the Conca dei Marini at 734 residents. So you get the picture, guys. There's it's a coast of towns, 13, and what they have in common is they're all connected to the SS 163 highway, and it's considered one of the most scenic drives in the world.
Yeah, we've done it several times, and the scariest.
It is. And, the first time we drove it, I don't think I was as freaked out because I was probably paying attention too much to the scenery and making you pull over and let me take pictures. But I guess my biggest memory is when you're actually in the driver's seat. And in 2021, when we were there with our friends, we had two rental cars, which is difficult to have cars in the Amalfi Coast, but we did it. Mm-hmm. And as we were driving along the coast headed to Calabria, we decided the two of us would drive so that they could sit at the windows and ooh and ah as we drove along the coast. And so this was my chance to be in the driver's seat.
That was your first time driving there, right?
It was. And I was like white knuckle the entire time. And just to share with everybody, what makes it scary. And I think you imagine maybe it's the cliffs. Are you going to fall over the cliffs? And is it really the scared of heights aspect of this? And it really isn't, right? But it's the other traffic. And it's a narrow 2-lane highway for the most part. Here and there, they've got places to pull over and take pictures. But you have to share this 2-lane highway with lots and lots of other vehicles and big buses. And there are corners. It's very windy. And I swear there were towns going through maybe Praiano or Atrani where I had my friends on the right side of the car telling me I was within 2 inches of the stone railing while there was a bus coming, against traffic towards me that had 2 inches from hitting the car. And I was so panicked this entire time. And I have to say that was one of my proudest achievements that I made it out without a single scratch on our rental car.
So, and now put in the mix scooters that they fly by right in front of you, right when you're accelerating to go and boom, and then they're in front of you. And it gets tense. When you drive that stretch, it gets tense, even for me.
Yes.
And yeah, that's why I can't recommend it to anyone to drive that, because first of all, you won't see anything and it's going to be so tense. There's no relaxing.
No, but it's beautiful.
This is a big area and you covered already a lot. What's the best way to keep it straight? So
I know it is. I mean, it is a little confusing, but I guess the key thing that I wanted to make sure everyone understands is that the term Amalfi Coast should only be used to talk about the south side of the Sorrentine Peninsula. I mean, that's the most accurate. And beyond that, I typically then speak of Naples, Pompeii, Sorrento, and the islands. So, while you may end up exploring the entire area, there is only one Amalfi Coast.
Wow, thank you for this overview. Is there anything else that we need to understand about this area?
Well, from a geographical standpoint, the one thing I think is key to understand is that while the area doesn't seem that large on Google Maps, its geography makes getting around more difficult. And, specifically we mentioned, the peninsula is a mountain range.
Yeah.
So you need to get up and over it, or you have to go around it to get anywhere. And, it takes more time than just, you see the distance and, well, it's only like 3 miles. How long can it take? And then you map it out and you're like, wow, why does Google say it's 45 minutes?
Yeah.
And because, it's a coastline, and the challenge is that there is like one main road along the coast. I think there's a little bit of a highway from Naples to Pompeii. Mm-hmm. But once you get to the Sorrentine Peninsula, you're limited to these small roads. And so traffic moves slow.
Yeah. So just to give you an idea, the stretch from Positano to Vietri sul Mare is about 50 kilometers or 30 miles. But it takes one about an hour and a half to an hour 45 minutes to do that stretch by car. Just to give you an idea.
Yep.
So.
But I guess the one thing I also want to point out, because this is an area by the water, one advantage it has going for it is the ferries. And so they run, mostly throughout the year to the major cities. During tourist season, there's many, but the ferries make it more possible. But just have to understand, geographically, it's a challenging area because of the mountains and the water.
So, Tanya, what's the best way to get there and then get around there then?
So if you're flying into the Amalfi Coast and area, I recommend flying into Naples as the easiest.
Oh, and why is that? Because there's also the airport of Salerno. And I always thought if you flying domestically, you could fly from Salerno. And if your base is in Amalfi, you could easily get there easier. Or isn't that so?
It's yes and no. I think for the most part, though, international travel is best to go into Naples. And you're correct. Like you can fly domestically from Italy or other European destinations like into Salerno. But I actually was asking one of my car service drivers this last week and said, hey, should I be utilizing Salerno more, either from the airport or a train perspective? And he explained that from, at least a car service or driving, it actually takes longer to go from Salerno than to go from Naples because of the roads and traffic, et cetera. And I think the one exception might be the ferry that, our daughter was there and she took the train to Salerno and then was going to Maiori. And there was a quick 30-minute ferry ride from Salerno. So you can, but I still feel most people, Naples ends up being the most convenient.
Okay.
But once you're in Naples, then you need to get to the other destinations that we've talked about. And, I recommend taking a car service or a ferry, whether you're going to Sorrento, another one of the towns like Positano. And, I think the car service is faster, though, than the ferry. And it's more comfortable, especially if you've been flying overnight or have had a long day of traveling. It's nice just to get into a car and leave it to somebody else.
Yeah.
To get you to, door to door.
And then they give you water and refreshments and all that. Much nicer.
Yeah, so then you can sightsee. And, I do want to point out, there is a train that services Naples and Pompeii and Sorrento, and it's called the Circumvesuviana. Did I do that, Davide?
Circumvesuviana.
Wow, that's a mouthful. But this train, most people advise against taking it. I can't tell you how many, like our Airbnb host, different hotel managers, different people I've talked to, they're like, just as a tourist, you do not want to take the train. These are older trains. There's no air conditioning. It's crowded. And tourists are, somewhat targeted for, petty theft and pickpocketing. And, so overall, I've tended to avoid the trains and again, opt for car service because I feel it's more comfortable after a long day of travel. But I have learned there is yet another train called the Campania Express that's supposed to be more tourist friendly, but I don't have experience with it yet. So I feel like I need to do my due diligence and tell everyone there is the train option, but we haven't utilized it. And I think it's just best to avoid the train and you'd find the car service way more comfortable and time efficient.
Okay, so how about renting a car?
Well, as we've talked about, driving is a little treacherous. One, the area is difficult to drive, right? We just talked about that. But you also then have to worry about parking. And because this area is mountainous and you can tell it densely populated, in these towns and tucked in between, these towns don't have a ton of like parking garages and street parking and
overpriced parking.
Yes. But they like pack them in. And so it's like parking is an art form. And we've seen them where they're within like centimeters of the car next to it. So chances are you're going to pay a lot of money and you're going to come back with dings on your rental car. Yeah. So it's just best to leave driving up to others. And, we've rented a car when we were there for like an entire month, but we had a designated place to park the car at our apartment. And when we went to the other towns, we were more strategic about it. And we had more time. Like we had a month.
I mean, okay, so let me tell you guys, we rented a car because we were there for a month. And to get around there, you need a car or a car service. And pretty much very fast, it became very expensive for us to have car service to drive us around. Or the buses. But the buses were there or not there.
My parents visited, your parents visited. So anybody with any sort of like mobility issues, you would need a car and rent or car service, $50 anywhere you went, pretty much.
$50, but it's right up top of the mountain. $50.
So anyway, and I think, we cannot reiterate this enough, but do not rent a scooter. I feel like it's, again, those advertisements and you go onto any tour operator site and they're pushing these Vespa tours and Vespa rentals and it looks beautiful, right? The image of on a cute little red scooter along the Amalfi Coast and lemons and water, like what could be better? But it's treacherous and I'm leery of Vespas anywhere in Italy, but I would just never get on one in the Amalfi Coast.
No, me neither, to be honest.
It's just too much going on and too many things that could go wrong. So no scooters. The bus is a decent option, but sometimes it's unreliable. I mean, again, they have to like drive that road and get by and they can be slow. And they're often during, high season packed full of people. Like I've heard people having to stand at the bus stop for like a couple of buses before there was room to get on.
Yeah.
And, my favorite option overall is the ferry, but some of the smaller towns are not connected to it. So it's great if you're in Sorrento, Positano, Amalfi, and Maiori. But the one risk is they may shut down in bad weather. I think it's rare, but they do require a bit of time since you have to line up on the ferries in advance and, get on and get off. But I enjoy being on the water and it's a great experience. So I would say, between car service and ferries is how I try to navigate.
Yes. Okay, so my next question for you. What kind of advice do you have for people, where to stay in the Amalfi Coast and its surroundings?
Okay, great question. And, as I'm talking with my clients about this, it largely depends on how many days you want to dedicate to staying in the area. Now, for me, ideally, I like to split it in two. Part in Sorrento and part in one of the towns on the Amalfi Coast. Like I just did this. You need at least 2 nights in each place, in my opinion, or 3 in one of those locations would be even better. But we did 2 and 2. If you have less time, then you need to pick one side or go to the top of the mountain.
Oh, yeah. That's a little hidden gem, isn't it?
It is, but let me go through the options a little bit in greater detail. So Sorrento is a great home base if you just have to pick one.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to explore Pompeii, Naples, or Capri, because it's the closest. You can hop a ferry and be in Naples in 30 minutes. It's pretty quick to Pompeii. You have a ferry to Capri in 30 minutes, so it's really easy. You can also take the ferry to Positano. Sorrento has a larger nightlife, so I feel like a lot of my clients that have teenagers, kids in their 20s, it's fun to go out and they feel safe walking around and shopping.
Yeah.
But it does lack a large beach. It has a lot of beach clubs on piers
Yes,
and rocks.
on the rocks.
But not really like the sandy beaches. So if beaches are important to you, you might want to consider being on the actual Amalfi Coast, Positano, or another coastal town, because they have the beaches. They're more known to be a little bit more laid back. And, being in these towns at night is a lot of fun. And now from getting to the islands, you can also get to Capri from the true Amalfi Coast, but it takes a little bit longer by ferry than from Sorrento. Now, the towns of Maiori and Minori are considered the gems along the coast. They're less touristy, less crowded, and have bigger beaches, just to throw that out there.
Cool.
But now back to the gem Davide alluded to is on top of the mountain, and it's a town called Sant'Agata sui Due Golfi. We've stayed at this town twice now, and it's super charming. It's less crowded and way more authentic. Like, it has a completely different vibe. Once you are up on the mountain, it's actually a little bit cooler too. And you forget, like, wow, it has a just completely different vibe.
Yeah, and you know why it's called the Sui Due Golfi? It's because you're on top of the mountain. On the one side, you see the Bay of Naples, and on the other side, you see the Bay of Salerno.
So you get both of them. And what's great, though, is that a lot of the hotels look out over Vesuvius, and it's just this amazing.
Yeah. And then you get the sunrise on one side and the sunset on the other side. So
it's perfect. It's often way less expensive than being by the coast. Like, if you compare hotels from Sorrento and Positano to Sant'Agata is far more economical. But it does add a little bit more logistical time. Like, you have to, factor that in. And most of the hotels will have a shuttle down to Sorrento.
Yeah.
But if the times don't work right early in the morning, later at night, you will need to get a car service. And then also to Positano, you typically need to get a car service. But as you're factoring it all in, you might have less expensive hotels, and then that allows you to have that savings for
Right.
a car service. But then you get to be in a place that not everybody goes to, and you have the views on both sides of the peninsula. And there's some great restaurants up there. And surprisingly, there's a Michelin star.
Yes, and we loved it. So good. So, okay, yeah. Do you have any other advice about picking a location?
Well, as I mentioned about transportation, towns with ferries such as Sorrento, Positano, Amalfi, Ravello, and Maiori make getting around so much easier. And you can stay in one of the other smaller towns, like Praiano. It's beautiful, and it has a lot of hotels and a lot of villas, and some have shuttles, but many don't. So you'll need to depend on the bus or a taxi, which eats up time and money. And,
Yeah.
my experience, I've had a couple of clients pick Praiano. They're like, oh, but it's so close to Positano. And there's some amazing resorts along, right by Praiano, maybe a little bit more east. And while the resorts were beautiful, they said getting to and from the resorts just added some complication during the day. So ferries make life the easiest.
Okay. So in our experience, we have stayed in Sorrento, Sant'Agata, Positano, Amalfi, Atrani, and Ravello.
Phew, all those places.
Yes. Okay. Do you have a favorite?
To be honest, I've enjoyed them all. There isn't one I wouldn't go back to, but overall, I think I have a preference for Amalfi.
Me too.
And We were just there. Like we finished the week out in Amalfi with my friends, and then you and I went to Naples for a night. And what I like about Amalfi is that it's larger and more spread out than Positano. There's not nearly as many stairs, and as fit as I like to think we are, it gets tiring.
Isn't as vertical as Positano.
Right. It's spread out, and it has, a much larger marina with lots of ferries and boat charters. It's easy to get to all of the other towns on the coast. And so it's 20 minutes to Positano. It's maybe 20 minutes or less to get to Maiori. And, the town itself just has a lot. And we went to a restaurant on the beach one night that you could only access by boat. And so they have that from Amalfi. So there was just a lot of variety. And because it is the third largest of the towns, I felt like it had a lot to offer, and yet you could still go over and enjoy Positano and the other places too. So you pulled it out of me, Davide.
Okay, cool. I kind of agree with you. So with Amalfi, it was my favorite as well. So, okay, so let's switch gears here and let me ask you this: what's there to do, like on the Amalfi Coast and its surroundings? What does one do when it gets there?
Well, as I mentioned back when we were talking about the Italian Riviera in episode 14, I kind of bucket my places in Italy as to places you go to see these key attractions like the Colosseum and the Vatican. And
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And then there are those places that they themselves are the attraction.
Yes.
And Amalfi Coast, of course, and the surrounding area fits into this second category where you go because of the ambiance and the natural beauty. It's all about the sea and the sun, the colorful Mediterranean towns, and of course the seafood, mozzarella, and lemons. And I try to balance wanting to actually just see all of the towns and their amazing views with relaxing and enjoying a key activity or two. But there's so much to do. Right? It took us a whole month to do them.
Yes. Okay. Let's start.
Okay. Well, let's break it down. So, and this helps too to pick your home base, right? Based on some of the activities you want to do. And a key one is to explore the coast and the towns.
Of course.
You want to. And you can do that either by boat or by car service. Both are great perspectives. I do find the car is a little bit easier to make stops and, get out and explore the town a little bit if you want to have a driver and they say, okay, I'll give you an hour or two to go to Positano. We go to Amalfi, can stop in Ravello. So that's very popular day trips.
Especially in Capri. When you get there, you rent a cab for a couple hours. They'll drive you all around. So anyway.
You can. But any of the towns or islands do make great day trips. And again, you can get there by car or by boat. And speaking of boating, I do encourage everybody to get on the water. And the ferries, as we mentioned in a couple of our different destinations we've talked about, is a very economical way to one, get from point A to point B, but also you get to be on a boat and be on water and get the views from the water. But you have the option to do a private or a shared boat ride, whether you do it all day or at a sunset cruise. And we did this from Positano earlier in the week. And, it was fun. You just feel like somehow glamorous. You're on this small yacht cruising the Amalfi Coast, going for a swim. We had some Prosecco, some cut up fruit. And we're like, wow, aren't we special?
Yeah.
Living the life. And it's, something I really encourage everybody to get some form of being on the water. And of course, the private boat is I think the most luxurious but special option.
So if you don't want to get on the water, can you get by the water?
Yes, of course. You're by the water. Beaches are a big draw for the area. And I won't go into so much detail, but just to know that there are lots of different varieties of beaches and Lido's beach clubs. Sorrento, again, we have the piers, and the other towns have, sandy beaches. Some are bigger than others. Some are pebble beaches. So do a little research if you're wanting to have a beach vacation, but they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you have archaeology. And we've mentioned Pompeii and Herculaneum. They're must-see places, in my opinion, and you can fit them in sometimes on your way to the Sorrentine Peninsula and just do a quick stop, 2 to 3 hours. It's a perspective you will have never seen anywhere else in this world. So must make a point to see at least one of the archaeology sites.
And Tanya, as we said it before, on the ground Naples has also archaeological sites, right?
Very true. And I'm really glad we made a point to do it. Another thing that is known in this area that not many people think of are farms and agriturismos. And, there are tons of lemon groves that the area is known for, and olive groves and mozzarella making. And there are great farms up on the mountain that are dedicated to production. And, they're great to tour, do a pizza making class, a pasta making class at these places, and as well as in the city. And as we're talking about food, food tours. I always love food tours to get an appreciation of the city as well as the culture through food. And we've done some really fun ones both in Naples and Sorrento. Okay, and of course with food in Italy, there's always wine. And I mentioned the winery I went to near Pompeii, but there are others near Amalfi and Ravello that are fun to tour if you're not going to be able to get a wine experience elsewhere in Italy. And because you're in nature and on mountains and cliffs, a very popular activity is hiking. And
Yes.
I convinced Davide to do this in 2022 when we were there for a month, but we did the Path of the Gods. And it's way up high on the cliff, you start between kind of above Priano, further east, and then you hike for about 4 hours and finish right above Positano. It's a little bit challenging a hike. I would say it's kind of comparable to hiking in the Cinque Terre.
Yeah.
But you get the most amazing views. I mean, if you think the views from the coast, the highway, are great, like to be even 300 meters higher than that, you feel like you're in the clouds and looking down on the water in the towns is magnificent.
Hey, there was another one that we did in there in Amalfi. It's the Valle delle Ferriere.
Yes, and I love that because you walked up through the lemon groves and then ultimately we saw some waterfalls. And there's a lemon walk one between Maiori and Minori that we've enjoyed. And even Sorrento has, mini hiking that you can do out to the Bagni Regina.
Yes, that was pretty cool. The site itself was pretty cool.
It was.
Worth it. So
the other key thing I like to point out for the Amalfi Coast and area are the sunrise and sunsets, right? When I travel, this is a big thing for me. And we talked about, because this is a peninsula and it's a mountain, you get better views on different sides. So if you're into sunrises, they're better on the Amalfi Coast side, the south side of the peninsula. And if you're wanting sunsets, Capri and Sorrento are the places to be. If you're looking for nightlife, I would say Sorrento, Positano, Amalfi, and Capri offer that night scene. And I don't know if you picked up earlier when we talked about concerts.
Yeah.
Ravello has a famous festival that really goes all summer.
Yeah.
From, I think, end of June to, through August on the weekends.
It's classical music though, right? So just to make sure that there's no rock concerts there. So,
but it has the most amazing venue. I mean, think about classical music on a stage with the sea as a backdrop.
How romantic.
Amazing. And let me not fail to mention shopping.
Oh boy.
There's so much you can do. There's gallerias, big shopping in Naples. Sorrento has quite a bit to offer as far as larger stores. Capri, of course, has a lot of the name brand designer stores. And there's, little boutique shops all over Positano and Amalfi. And what the area is known for, one, you can have your own leather sandals made in Positano and Capri, but you'll see ceramics everywhere. And the reason behind that is, it was largely, known in Vietri sul Mare, like it was I don't know, really one of the inventors or historic builders or breakers of this. Yeah. But there are large ceramic factories. And there's one actually near Conca dei Marini that is popular for my drivers to stop at for clients. And they love it and ship a lot of ceramics home.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. So Tanya, after all these activities, one must get hungry. So what's there to eat?
There is so much. And, let's try to do this, I guess, a little high level. But of course, we've mentioned already the seafood. I eat so much seafood these last few days. One of my
I love
favorites is the
seafood.
polpo, the octopus. So I had some great grilled octopus. Ate lots of mozzarella di bufala.
Yes.
And, the area is known for this. Actually, it's more inland of Campania where they have the water buffalo cows that produce the milk for the mozzarella bufala. And I don't know if everybody assumed this or knew this, but the caprese salad is actually from Capri.
Capri.
So once you know that Capri, caprese, little intuitive. And as Davide mentioned, the Milk Mountains, there's the sheep and goat cheese from these mountains. Beyond that, there's definitely some traditional dishes of pasta. You've got the pacari served with fish sauce, larger pasta noodles, then gnocchi alla sorrentina.
Lovely.
Davide loves that. I think that was one of his favorite dishes.
I just want to make it tomorrow, maybe.
They're known for the parmigiana di melanzane. Yep. And they do it a little bit differently than maybe how they do in Calabria and the way your mom makes it. There's lots and lots of things with lemon. So you can get the pasta al limone. There's the delizia al limone, which is a dessert cake.
Yeah, forgot to eat it. Did you have it when you were there back?
I did not. But I had lots of lemon ice cream. The baba is also a dessert soaked in rum. And of course, the area is known for limoncello. Yes. And so at the end of every meal, they bring you a little shot of limoncello. And my friends loved it. And actually, they got hooked on limoncello spritzes.
Oh, great.
And the area has wine as well. And so I'd always make sure I ask for the local wine. And I always forget the names of them.
Aglianico and no.
And I shipped the rosé home just so you wonder if it's in the box down there.
I think we extensively talked about wine on our episode 12 with Alfonso. He's from the region and so he told us.
Yeah. Well, just to summarize, again, as everywhere in Italy, you're going to eat great. And I encourage you to eat the local specialties of seafood and cheese and fresh vegetables and fruit. And it's wonderful.
Well, now I'm hungry. But before we can break here and eat, do you have some tips for us? Tips from Tanya.
Of course I do. So one of the questions, of course, I get is when is the best time to go? And because the Amalfi Coast and its surrounding neighbors are seasonal, it's really only open from April to October. Naples, of course, is open all year. Pompeii is open all year. But anything really on the water is April to October. And if you go during winter, Positano, I think would feel like a little bit of a ghost town.
Yes.
So June through August is peak. That peak season is moving into September. And so again, being there earlier this week, it was crowded, not super crowded, but it was still very warm, very humid the entire week. And, I personally think I would enjoy May and October more because I'm not always looking just for that beach vacation. To book, I would say booking opens up in November for the following season. And just to be aware that many places do require a 3 to 5 minimum night stay as you're booking. The next tip I have is, we talked about transportation being difficult. One of the things I try to do is to combine an activity with getting from point A to point B. It's not that much more expensive to include a stop. And then you get a tour guide, who's telling you what you're seeing along the way. You can make stops and they're there to watch your luggage. And so you don't have to just pay to go, well, I need to go from Sorrento to Positano or Sorrento to, Amalfi.
Yep.
Build some stops into it and make it a day trip.
That's a good idea.
And thirdly, my last tip is when choosing a home base, and, I've talked about this probably in other episodes, you have to think about the activities you want to do, but also think about where you want to be at night. The, popular places like Positano, Amalfi, and Capri are really amazing at night when all the day trippers leave. So if you're, knowing that you're going to be at the beach during the day, or you can leave and go to other places during the day, you get the towns you're staying in to yourself at night when there are less people. So another thing to consider.
Okay. Wow. So that brings us to the end of this episode. And wow, I'm just thinking about it again. The Amalfi Coast, Naples, Sorrento, Capri, Ischia, Procida.
It's wonderful. And it's a corner of Italy we've loved returning to since 2009, and one that never fails to surprise us with its views, its beauty, and its flavors.
Well, we hope this episode has inspired you to explore it for yourself, right, Tanya?
Yes, everyone must go at some point. And I have to say thank you for joining us today on Experience Italy with Friends. Until next time, arrivederci and safe travels.
Ciao, ciao.
We hope you've enjoyed Experience Italy with Friends. If you like the podcast, remember to follow us and leave a review letting us know what you found to be the most helpful. And if you want expert advice or assistance in creating your own immersive and authentic experience in Italy, visit us at www.amicivacations.com.